The great dome of the Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from dozens of species filled the curved rows of seats, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some floated in special atmosphere, bubbles. Others stood on multiple legs and a few hung from the ceiling like bats. But today, all eyes were on the center podium where Ambassador HFY of the Hegemony stood with grave news. Counselor Veltar of the Altrurians shifted uncomfortably in her bio seat. Her blue skin had turned a worried shade of purple, and her large eyes never left the ambassador. She had a bad feeling about this emergency session. The humans had been doing so well lately, making friends across the galaxy, and helping with trade disputes. What could possibly be wrong? Fellow beings of the Council, HFY began, his voice echoing through the chamber's translation systems. I bring disturbing news from the outer sectors. The Korthax Empire has made a declaration that shocks us all. A ripple of whispers spread through the chamber. The Korthax were known for being aggressive, but they usually kept to themselves in their corner of the galaxy. Admiral Sektoth, the Hegemony's military expert, stood up in his section. His gray uniform was covered with medals, and his face looked grim. The Korthax have declared war on humanity, HFY announced. The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates jumped to their feet, shouting in dozens of languages. The translation system struggled to keep up with the sudden burst of voices. Veltar felt her heart skip several beats. War? Against the humans? It made no sense at all. Order! Order! Called the council speaker, a tall being made of what looked like living crystal. The noise slowly died down as delegates returned to their seats. Ambassador HFY, please explain this madness. HFY activated a holographic display above the podium. Images of Korthax military leaders appeared, their reptilian faces twisted with anger. 3 days ago, General Krex of the Korthax High Command issued this statement. The display switched to show a large Korthax in military dress, his scales dark green and his eyes burning with fury. People of the galaxy, the recording began. For too long we have watched a dangerous species grow in power. The humans expand, without asking permission. They build weapons while claiming to be peaceful. They refuse to follow proper galactic law. This cannot continue. Veltar's throat made a strangled sound. She had worked with humans for years. They were some of the nicest beings she had ever met. Always polite, always willing to help, always asking questions before doing anything big. The idea that they were dangerous seemed impossible. The recording continued. The human threat grows every day. Their ships multiply. Their colonies spread. Like a virus. They learn our technology too quickly and make it better. Soon they will be too strong to stop. We must act now, before it is too late. Admiral Sektoth stood up again, his face dark with worry. If I may speak, honored council? The speaker nodded, and Sektoth moved to a secondary podium. I have studied human military capabilities for the past 10 years. The Korthax are making a terrible mistake. Explain, Admiral, the speaker requested. Sektoth brought up his own display, showing human ships and colonies. The humans are not what they appear to be. Yes, they seem peaceful and friendly. Yes, they ask permission before expanding. Yes, they follow our laws, but there are things about them that the Korthax clearly do not understand. General Krex's image appeared again, this time live from the Korthax home world. His scales were puffed out in aggression, and his teeth showed in what humans would call a snarl. The Council has been fooled by human lies. They pretend to be weak, but they are planning to conquer us all. Veltar could not stay quiet any longer. She activated her speaking platform and rose into the air. General Krex, with respect, I have worked closely with humans for many years. They are not conquerors, they are helpers. They have solved more disputes in this council than any other species. Krex's laugh was like breaking glass. Counselor, Veltar, your species is known for trusting everyone. The humans have tricked you just like they tricked the rest of the council. Look at their expansion. 50 new colonies in the last 20 years. Look at their technology. They went from stone tools to space flight in just a few thousand years. No species advances that fast without help or without planning something big. Admiral Sektoth tried to interrupt. General, if you would listen to our intelligence reports, your intelligence is worthless, Krex shouted. My scouts have seen human military exercises. They use weapons that could crack planets. They train every citizen like a soldier. They build their colonies like fortresses. These are not the actions of a peaceful species. The chamber erupted in arguments again. Some delegates agreed with Krex, worried about human expansion. Others defended humanity, pointing out all the good things humans had done. The noise grew so loud that the translation system started giving error messages. Through it all, Veltar felt a growing sense of horror. She remembered conversations with her human friends, especially Ambassador Sarah Chen from Earth. Sarah had always been careful about what she said, always checking with her government before making any promises. Now Veltar wondered if there were things Sarah had not told her. The speaker managed to restore order again. General Krex, what exactly do the Korthax intend to do? Krex's image smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. We have already begun. Our fleets are moving toward human space. We will destroy their military bases and occupy their colonies. Once they are properly controlled, they will not be able to threaten anyone ever again. This is insane, Admiral, Sektoth shouted. You have no idea what you are starting. I know exactly what I'm starting, Krex replied. I am saving the galaxy from a species that has fooled everyone with pretty words and fake smiles. In 1 week, you will thank me for removing this threat. The connection to Krex ended, leaving the chamber in shocked silence. Veltar felt sick. War was coming, and there seemed to be nothing anyone could do to stop it. The speaker's crystal, body dimmed with worry. We must contact Earth immediately. Perhaps we can still prevent this disaster. I have been trying for 3 days, Zethkos said quietly. Human space has gone completely silent. No ships, no messages, no communications at all. It is like they simply vanished. Admiral Sektoth's face went pale. Oh no. Oh no no no. He started typing rapidly on his datapad, his fingers shaking. Speaker, we need to send every available ship to monitor the situation. We need to record everything that happens. Why? Veltar asked, though she was afraid of the answer. Sektoth looked up from his pad, his eyes wide with fear. Because if I am right about the humans, the Korthax are about to learn why no species in galactic history has ever successfully invaded a human world, and we need to have evidence of what really happened when they do. The chamber fell silent again, filled with a sense of approaching doom. Outside the great dome, the stars seemed to flicker with an ominous light, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath for what was about to come. On the bridge of the Korthax flagship Bone Crusher, General Krex studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. Hundreds of his ships moved through space toward human territory, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. The largest invasion fleet in Korthax history was finally going to teach these upstart humans their proper place in the galaxy. Report on human defenses, Krex ordered his intelligence officer, Major Vexita. Vexita pulled up holographic displays, showing human colonies and ships. General, our scouts confirm that human military technology remains primitive. They still use kinetic weapons instead of proper energy beams. Their ships are mostly converted civilian vessels with armor bolted on. Their fastest ships can barely reach half the speed of our slowest fighters. Krex nodded approvingly. And their numbers? Pathetic, sir. Earth has maybe 200 military ships, and their colonies have even fewer. Most human settlements have no orbital defenses at all. They seem to think their location in peaceful space protects them. Vexta's scales rippled with amusement. They have no idea what real warfare looks like. Excellent. Krex turned to his tactical officer. How long? Until we reach their first colony? 6 hours, General. The target is New Hebron, a farming world with about 50,000 humans. Our scouts report no military presence at all, just civilian transports and agricultural equipment. Krex showed his teeth in a predator's smile. Perfect. We will make New Hebron an example. When the galaxy sees how easily we crush a human world, they will understand that the Korthax Empire means business. What the Korthax did not know was that every move they made was being watched. Hidden sensors throughout space tracked their fleets, and quantum communication systems instantly sent the information back to Earth and every human colony. In the underground command center beneath Geneva, Fleet Admiral Chen Rodriguez studied the same tactical displays the Korthax were using, but her information was much more complete. She could see not just where the enemy ships were, but what weapons they carried, how fast they could go, and even what their commanders were saying to each other. Admiral, her intelligence chief reported, Korthax fleet composition is exactly as predicted. Heavy reliance on energy weapons, minimal point defense systems, and their flagship classes are built for intimidation rather than combat effectiveness. Rodriguez nodded. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes, but those who knew her understood that she was one of the most dangerous humans alive. She had spent 40 years preparing for this exact moment, the day when humanity would have to show the galaxy who they really were. "What about their intelligence on our capabilities?" she asked. Her aide, Captain Williams, pulled up another display. "They think we have 200 military ships. The actual number is—" He paused, checking his classified files. "Classified even from me, but it's a lot more than 200. Rodriguez almost smiled. "They think our weapons are primitive kinetic systems. They think our colonies are undefended. They think our civilians are helpless." She stood up and walked to the main display, which showed the Korthax fleet approaching New Hebron. They are about to learn how wrong they are. On New Hebron, the colonists were also preparing, but not in the way the Korthax expected. What looked like a simple farming world from orbit was actually one of humanity's most advanced defensive positions. The agricultural equipment Korthax scouts had seen were actually camouflaged weapon systems. The civilian transports were military vessels with fake identification codes. Colony Administrator Janet Park stood in the hidden command center beneath the main settlement. Around her, men and women in farming clothes were removing panels from their equipment to reveal advanced military hardware. What had looked like a peaceful farming community was transforming into a fortress. "Ma'am," her military liaison reported, "all defense platforms are online and ready. Orbital satellites are armed and waiting. Ground-based railgun batteries have target locks on the approaching fleet." Park nodded. She had been a Marine before becoming a colonial administrator, and every human colonist had similar training. The galaxy thought humans were soft because they were peaceful, but peace and weakness were not the same thing. "Any word from the Galactic Council?" she asked. "Still trying to negotiate. Counselor Veltar sent another message begging the Korthax to reconsider, but they are not listening." Park felt sorry for Veltar. The Altrurian had become a good friend over the years, always trying to help humanity fit into galactic society. She was going to be very upset when she learned what humans were really capable of. "All right, people," Park announced to her colonists. "Remember the rules of engagement. No one fires until they fire first. We defend ourselves, but we do not start the killing. When it begins, we end it quickly and completely. Any questions?" Young farmer raised her hand. "Ma'am, what if they surrender?" "Then we accept their surrender and treat prisoners according to galactic law," Park replied. "We are not monsters. We are just very good at protecting ourselves." Back in space, the Korthax fleet was approaching New Hebron's orbit. General Kreck stood on his bridge, already planning his victory speech. His sensors showed a quiet world with a few small satellites and no military presence. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Target their communication systems first, then their power plants. I want this world helpless within the hour." The first Korthax ships opened fire on what they thought were communication satellites. Energy beams lanced through space toward the small objects orbiting New Hebron. The beams hit their targets perfectly, and then the galaxy changed forever. The communication satellites exploded outward, revealing themselves as heavily armed defense platforms. Massive railguns that had been hidden inside civilian-looking shells opened fire. Kinetic projectiles moving at incredible speeds slammed into Korthax ships, punching through their energy shields like they were made of paper. "What?" "General," Kreck started to say, and then his flagship shook as something hit it hard enough to crack the hull. "General," his weapons officer screamed. "Unknown contacts appearing all around us. The humans have ships everywhere." On the main display, space around New Hebron suddenly filled with human vessels. They had been hiding using technology the Korthax had never seen before, and now they were attacking from every direction. "Impossible," Kreck shouted. "Our intelligence said they had no defenses." His ships were dying around him. Human kinetic weapons were tearing through Korthax hulls like hot knives through ice. Energy shields that could stop laser beams were useless against solid projectiles, moving at thousands of kilometers per second. "Sir, we are taking massive casualties. These are not primitive weapons. These are the most advanced kinetic systems we have ever encountered." Krex watched in horror as his mighty invasion fleet was being systematically destroyed by enemies who were not supposed to exist. "How many human ships are there?" We cannot tell, sir. Our sensors are being jammed by technology we do not recognize, but there are at least 50, maybe 100. The truth was even worse than Krex feared. New Hebron was protected by over 200 human military vessels, all equipped with stealth systems and weapons that made Korthax technology look like children's toys. And this was just one colony, one small farming world that the Korthax had thought would be easy prey. As his flagship's hull cracked under another railgun impact, General Krex finally understood that he had made the worst mistake in Korthak's history. The humans were not primitive. They were not weak. They were not unprepared. They had been waiting. The Battle of New Hebron lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the mighty Korthak's invasion fleet was nothing but debris, floating in space around a human colony that had barely been scratched. General Krex's flagship limped away with half its crew dead and most of its weapons destroyed. Of the 300 ships he had brought to conquer humanity's weakest world, only 47 survived to retreat. In the Galactic Council chambers, the emergency session had been running for hours. Every delegate watched the real-time battle feeds in shocked silence as the impossible happened before their eyes. The humans had not just defended themselves, they had completely destroyed an invasion force that should have been able to conquer half the galaxy. Counselor Veltar stared at the displays with her mouth open. Ships she had never seen before filled the screens around New Hebron. Human vessels that looked nothing like the simple transports and cargo haulers she was used to seeing. These were clearly military ships, and they were more advanced than anything in the Galactic Council's combined fleets. "Where did they come from?" whispered the delegate from Proxima. "We monitor all human shipbuilding. We know every vessel they have ever launched." Admiral Sektoth was typing frantically on his datapad, trying to analyze what he was seeing. His face had gone completely pale, and his hands shook as he worked. "These are not new ships," he said finally. "Look at the hull designs, the engine, signatures. Some of these vessels are at least 50 years old." 50 years? Veltar turned to stare at him. "But that would mean, it means the humans have been hiding their true military strength for decades," Sektoth confirmed. "Everything we thought we knew about their capabilities was wrong. Completely wrong. On the main screen, the aftermath of the battle was becoming clear. Human ships were rescuing Korthak survivors from destroyed vessels, providing medical aid and treating prisoners with care. But at the same time, massive industrial ships were appearing around New Hebron, already beginning to harvest the metal from the wreckage. "They are recycling the debris," observed the Krestek delegate. "Within days, that metal will become new human ships." A new voice joined the conversation. The speaker was Ambassador Sarah Chen from Earth, but she was not in the council chambers. Her image appeared on the main display, transmitted from somewhere in human space. Behind her, other humans in military uniforms worked at stations that looked far more advanced than anything the council had ever seen. "Honored delegates," Sarah said, her voice calm but cold. "I speak for humanity in this dark hour. We did not want this war. We tried to prevent it through diplomacy. The Galactic Council has our full cooperation in investigating what happened here." General Krex's battered face appeared on a split screen. He was aboard his damaged flagship, surrounded by smoke and sparking electronics. You animals! You tricked us! You pretended to be weak!" Sarah's expression did not change. "General Krex, we never pretended to be anything. We simply chose not to show you our weapons unless you forced us to use them. You forced us." "The Ba'i Council will hear of this deception," Krex shouted. "Humanity has been lying to the galaxy for years." "We have never lied to anyone," Sarah replied. "We answered every question the Council asked us honestly. We followed every law and treaty we agreed to. We helped resolve conflicts and provided aid during disasters. The fact that you assumed we were helpless because we were helpful is your mistake, not our deception." Counselor Veltar activated her speaking platform. "Sarah, my friend, I do not understand. Where did all these ships come from? How long has humanity been preparing for war?" Sarah turned to face her, and for a moment her cold expression softened. "Veltar, humanity has been preparing for war since before we left our home planet. It is what we do. We prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. Every human colony has defenses. Every human citizen has military training. Every human ship can be converted for combat if necessary." "But you never told us," Veltar said, her voice hurt and confused. "Because we hoped we would never need to tell you," Sarah replied. "We wanted to be part of a peaceful galaxy. We wanted to be friends and traders and explorers. But we also knew that someday, someone might decide we were a threat simply because we existed." Admiral Sektoth's datapad beeped with new information. He looked at it and his face went even paler. "Sarah, our sensors are detecting massive fleet movements throughout human space. How many ships do you actually have?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was very soft, but somehow that made it more terrifying. "Admiral, Every human world has a defense force. Every human system has patrol fleets. Every human sector has battle groups. We have been building ships for 60 years, and we have been very busy. How many? Sektoth pressed. Enough. The simple answer sent a chill through the council chamber. Nobody needed to ask what enough meant. Enough to defend every human world. Enough to defeat any threat. Enough to win any war that was forced upon them. General Krex tried to interrupt again. The Korthax Empire will not stand for this humiliation. We will return with a larger fleet. We will... General, Sarah's voice cut through his shouting like ice. I suggest you listen very carefully to what I am about to tell you. The Battle of New Hebron was fought entirely with defensive forces stationed at one colony. You attacked 50,000 farmers and their families. They defended themselves using weapons and ships they keep on hand for exactly this situation. She paused to let that sink in. If you attack humanity again, you will not be fighting farmers. You will be fighting the full military might of the human species. Our warships will come to your worlds. Our soldiers will land on your planets. Our fleets will blockade your systems. And when we are done, the Korthax Empire will exist only in history books. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in absolute silence. Finally, the speaker's crystal form pulsed with worried light. Delegates, we appear to have a situation. A situation? The delegate from Rigel's voice cracked. The humans just revealed that they could probably conquer half the galaxy if they wanted to. That is not a situation. That is a complete change. In the balance of galactic power. Veltar felt sick to her stomach. All those years of friendship, all those conversations about peace and cooperation, and the humans had been hiding weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Did they even trust her? Did they consider her a friend or just another alien to be managed? But then she remembered something Sarah had said. They had prepared for war while hoping for peace. They had built weapons while trying to be friends. They had kept their strength secret not to deceive, but to avoid scaring everyone else. Maybe, Veltar thought, that was the most human thing of all. To be ready for the worst while working toward the best. To be strong enough to protect themselves, while gentle enough to help others, to hide their fangs not because they were ashamed of them, but because they hoped they would never need to use them. As the council session continued into the night, one thing became very clear. The galaxy had been living next to a sleeping giant for decades, and now that giant was awake. What happened next would depend on whether the rest of the galaxy was smart enough to let it go back to sleep. The human response came exactly 72 hours after the Battle of New Hebron, and it came like thunder across the galaxy. General Krex was in his command bunker on the Korthax homeworld when the first reports arrived. His scales had turned a sickly yellow color since his defeat, and he had not slept since returning from New Hebron. The other Korthax generals avoided him, whispering that he had brought disaster upon their entire species. Sir, his communications officer called out, her voice shaking with fear. We are receiving reports from our outer colonies. Human fleets have appeared in 17 different systems simultaneously. Krex's blood went cold. Impossible. How could they move so many ships so quickly? It would take weeks to coordinate an attack on that scale. Sir, it appears they were already in position before we attacked New Hebron. These fleets were waiting. The main screen filled with tactical displays from across Korthax space. Krex stared in growing horror as the reports came in. Human task forces had appeared at every major Korthax military base, every shipyard, every strategic system. They had not come to invade planets full of civilians. They had come to destroy the Korthax Empire's ability to make war. How many ships? Krex whispered. We do not know, sir. Our commanders report anywhere from 50 to 500 human vessels per target. The humans are using jamming technology that makes accurate counts impossible. On Korthax Secundus, the Empire's greatest fortress world, Admiral Korvac watched human ships fill the space around his planet. He had commanded this system for 20 years and had never seen anything that scared him. Until now. The human fleet was like nothing in his experience. Ships that looked like giant hammers hung in space next to vessels that resembled metal spears. Some were clearly built for long-range bombardment, others for close combat. All of them bristled with weapons he could not identify. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. The main screen flickered, and suddenly Admiral Chen Rodriguez appeared. She stood on what looked like the bridge of a massive warship, surrounded by humans, in military uniforms. Behind her, displays showed tactical information about every Korthax position in the system. Admiral Korvac, Rodriguez said calmly. I am Fleet Admiral Chen Rodriguez of the Human Defense Forces. You have 1 hour to evacuate all military personnel from Korthax Secundus. After that time, we will begin systematic destruction of your military installations. Korvac's jaw dropped. You cannot be serious. This world has population centers, millions of civilians. Which is exactly why you have 1 hour to evacuate your military forces, Rodriguez replied. We are not here to harm civilians. We are here to end your empire's ability to threaten humanity or anyone else. Move your soldiers, and we will not target population areas. And if we refuse? Rodriguez's expression did not change, but somehow she became more frightening. Admiral, you attacked farmers and their families. You declared war on a species that wanted nothing more than to live in peace. Did you really think we would not respond? The transmission ended, leaving Korvac staring at empty space filled with human warships. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, the emergency session had become permanent. Delegates who had gone home after the New Hebron battle were called back as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The humans were not just defending themselves, they were methodically dismantling the Korthax Empire's military power. Current status report, requested the speaker. Admiral Sektoth stood at his podium looking exhausted. 17 Korthax systems are under human blockade. The humans have destroyed 43 military installations, 15 shipyards, and captured over 200 Korthax warships. Casualties among Korthax military personnel are estimated at over 50,000. And civilian casualties? Asked Councillor Veltar. 0, Sektoth replied. The humans are being very precise in their targeting. They destroy military facilities but do not touch cities, farms, or civilian infrastructure. They have even provided medical aid to Korthax wounded. The delegate from Rigel shook his tentacles in confusion. This makes no sense. If they wanted to conquer the Korthax Empire, why not simply bombard their planets into submission? Because they do not want to conquer anyone, Veltar said quietly. They want to end a threat. There is a difference. On the main screen, battle. Footage from Korthax Tertius showed human marines storming a fortress that had been thought impregnable. The Korthax defenders had energy weapons, advanced armor, and numerical superiority. None of it mattered. The humans moved like they had been born for war. They worked together with a coordination that seemed impossible, each soldier knowing exactly where their comrades were and what they were doing. When Korthax positions opened fire, the humans simply flowed around the danger like water around rocks, appearing in places the defenders had not even considered vulnerable. How are they so effective? Wondered the Christek delegate. Korthax warriors are among the best in the galaxy. Because every human is a soldier, Admiral Sektoth answered. Remember what Ambassador Chen said. Every human receives military training. The farmers who defended New Hebron were combat veterans. The civilians evacuating Korthax installations know exactly how to move under fire. The humans did not just build an army, they turned their entire species into an army. The battle footage showed human medics treating wounded Korthax soldiers with the same care they gave their own people. It showed human engineers repairing civilian power systems that had been damaged in the fighting. It showed human commanders accepting the surrender of Korthax forces and treating prisoners according to galactic law. But it also showed the systematic destruction of everything the Korthax Empire had built for war. Shipyards that had taken decades to construct were reduced to metal fragments in hours. Space stations that had guarded key systems for centuries were turned into expanding clouds of debris. The Korthax military machine was being taken apart, piece by piece with ruthless efficiency. Incoming transmission from Admiral Rodriguez, the Council's communications officer announced. Rodriguez appeared on the main screen, still calm and professional despite commanding what was essentially the largest military operation in galactic history. Honored delegates, I want to make humanity's position clear. We are not conquering the Korthax Empire. We are defending ourselves and ensuring that they cannot threaten us or anyone else again. Admiral, the speaker asked, what are your terms for ending this conflict? The Korthax Empire will surrender all military vessels and installations. They will submit to galactic oversight of their government. They will pay reparations to the families of every human killed or wounded in their unprovoked attack. And General Krex will be turned over to the Galactic Council for trial as a war criminal. The terms were harsh but not unreasonable. The humans were not asking for territory or tribute beyond what was needed to repair the damage they had suffered. They were asking for guarantees that this would never happen again. And if the Korthax refuse? Asked the delegate from Proxima Rodriguez. was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was very soft, but it carried across the chamber like the whisper of a blade being drawn from its sheath. Then in 72 hours there will no longer be a Korthax empire. There will only be Korthax worlds under human occupation, Korthax people learning to live under human law, and history books that will remember General Krex as the fool who woke a giant that had been content to sleep. The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. Outside the great dome the stars seemed to burn a little brighter, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath to see what the Korthax empire would choose. Surrender and survive, or continue fighting and face complete destruction at the hands of a species that had tried very hard to be their friends. The surrender came at dawn on the Korthax homeworld. General Krex stood in his command bunker, surrounded by the wreckage of his empire's military might. The holographic displays that once showed hundreds of Korthax ships now showed empty space patrolled by human vessels. His greatest fortresses had been reduced to rubble. His proudest fleets had been captured or destroyed. In just 5 days, the Korthax Empire had been completely and utterly defeated. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "the Council of Elders is asking for your decision. The humans have given us one final hour before they begin bombardment of our remaining military installations." Krex looked around at his remaining officers. These were the warriors who had followed him into what they thought would be an easy conquest. Now they waited for him to decide whether their species would survive or be wiped from the galaxy. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he said finally. Admiral Rodriguez appeared on the screen, looking exactly as calm and professional as she had throughout the entire conflict. Behind her, the bridge of her flagship hummed with quiet efficiency. These humans had just conducted the most successful military campaign in galactic history, and they acted like it was simply another day at work. "Admiral Rodriguez," Krex began, his voice cracking with defeat, "the Korthax Empire formally surrenders to human forces. We accept all of your terms." Rodriguez nodded. "General Krex, you will transport yourself to the human vessel Determination within the next 4 hours. You will be held for trial by the Galactic Council on charges of crimes against peace. Do you understand?" "I understand." Krex's scales had faded to a dull gray. "Admiral, I must ask, how long have you been planning this? How long have your people been preparing for war?" Rodriguez considered the question carefully. "General, humanity has been preparing for war since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what we might find out there. We hoped for friends, but we prepared for enemies. We wanted peace, but we made ready for conflict. It is simply who we are. But why hide your strength? Why pretend to be weak?" "We never pretended to be weak," Rodriguez replied. "We simply chose not to display our strength unnecessarily. A wise predator does not show its teeth unless it intends to bite." The connection ended, leaving Krex alone with the consequences of his choices. In the Galactic Council chambers, the emergency session was finally coming to an end. Representatives from dozens of species had watched in awe and terror as humanity revealed its true nature to the galaxy. The peaceful farmers and merchants they had known for decades were also warriors without equal, strategists without peer, and soldiers without mercy for their enemies. "The final count," Admiral Sektoth reported to the assembled delegates, "is 437 Korthax military vessels captured, 186 installations destroyed, and over 300,000 Korthax military personnel taken prisoner. Human losses were 23 killed and 67 wounded. The numbers were staggering. The humans had destroyed the military power of an entire empire, while suffering casualties that would barely qualify as a skirmish in most conflicts. How is this possible?" asked the delegate from Rigel. "The Korthax had numerical superiority and advanced weapons. How did the humans achieve such a decisive victory?" Admiral Rodriguez, now participating in the council session directly, stood to answer. "Delegate, the Korthax made several critical errors. They assumed that being peaceful meant being weak. They assumed that asking permission meant being unable to act independently. They assumed that following galactic law meant being unable to defend ourselves. But surely you must have some advantages we do not understand," pressed the Christek delegate. Rodriguez smiled, and for the first time since the conflict began, it was a warm expression rather than a cold one. "Our advantage is very simple. We are human. We have been fighting wars for our entire species' existence. We have studied conflict, refined strategy, and perfected tactics for thousands of years. Most species in the galaxy evolved past their warlike nature as they became civilized. We simply became better at war while staying civilized." Counselor Veltar activated her speaking platform. Sarah, Admiral Rodriguez, I must ask. Now that the galaxy knows your true capabilities, what happens next? Will humanity seek to dominate the Council? Will you try to rule over the rest of us? Both Rodriguez and Ambassador Chen exchanged looks. Chen stepped forward to answer. Veltar, my dear friend, humanity wants exactly what we have always wanted. We want to be part of a peaceful galactic community. We want to trade, explore, learn, and help solve problems. The only thing that has changed is that everyone now knows we can defend ourselves and our friends. Your friends? Veltar asked. The Altrurians have been good friends to humanity for many years, Chen continued. The hegemony worlds have been fair trading partners. The Christek have shared scientific knowledge. The beings of Proxima have helped us learn galactic law. Why would we want to conquer people who have been kind to us? Admiral Sektoth stood up at his podium. But surely this changes the balance of power in the galaxy. Humanity is now clearly the dominant military force. Rodriguez nodded. Yes, Admiral, it does change things. But perhaps not in the way you fear. She activated a holographic display showing the current state of galactic space. For the past century, the galaxy has been relatively peaceful, because no one species was strong enough to threaten all the others. Now there is one species that could, if it chose to, conquer most of known space. The chamber fell silent as delegates contemplated this sobering fact. But, Rodriguez continued, we choose not to. Instead, we offer something different. Humanity will serve as the galaxy's defense force. If any species threatens the peace, if any empire tries to conquer its neighbors, if any force tries to disrupt the stability we all depend on, then humanity will respond. You want to be the galaxy's police force? Asked the speaker. We want to be the galaxy's guardians, Chen corrected. We want every species to be free to develop according to their own nature, trade with whom they choose, and live in peace. We will use our strength to protect that freedom, not to take it away. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The galaxy had seen what happened when someone threatened humanity. No species wanted to face that kind of overwhelming response. At the same time, humanity's offer of protection was appealing to smaller species who had always worried about their larger, more aggressive neighbors. As the session finally ended, Veltar found herself alone with Sarah Chen in a quiet corridor outside the chamber. Sarah, she said softly, I feel like I never really knew you at all. All these years of friendship, and you were hiding so much. Sarah took her friend's hands gently. Veltar, I was never hiding who I was. I was hiding what I could do. There is a difference. Is there? Veltar asked. Yes, Sarah replied. I am still the same person who helped you resolve the trade dispute between Rigel and Proxima. I am still the person who stayed up all night helping you prepare for your first speech to the Council. I am still the person who brought you human chocolate when you were sad about your family. None of that was fake. But you could have conquered us all, Veltar said. But I did not want to, Sarah replied. Power without purpose is meaningless. Strength without friendship is hollow. Humanity could dominate the galaxy, but what would be the point? We would be alone among the stars, feared and hated by everyone else. Veltar thought about this for a long moment. So you chose to be strong enough to protect us, but gentle enough to be our friends. That, Sarah said with a smile, is the most human thing of all. Years later, when historians wrote about the brief conflict between humanity and the Korthax Empire, they would call it the war that ended all wars. Not because it was the last war ever fought, but because it established a new order in the galaxy. An order where the strong protected the weak, where conflicts were resolved through negotiation, rather than conquest, and where even the most powerful species chose cooperation over domination. The humans kept their word. They never used their overwhelming military superiority to expand their territory or impose their will on others. Instead, they became the guardians of galactic peace, the species that others could call upon when threatened, and the friends who could be trusted with ultimate power because they chose not to use it. And General Krex, serving his sentence in a comfortable prison on a human world, often wondered what might have been different if he had simply asked humanity to be his ally, instead of assuming they had to be his enemy. The galaxy was a safer place, protected by a species that had learned the greatest lesson of all, that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when not to.